Okay, well, good morning, Tom. It's good to be here with you again today. I am Dr. Sherry Johnson. I am an enrolled tribal member, Sistem Wapten Oyate. I am the education director. My family, just a little background on myself. My family is from Buffalo Lake, and so we spent most of our life up there. And then my parents have now passed on. My father is Wayne Eastman, and Raymond Eastman was my grandfather, and my grandma Virginia. And so come from a long line of Eastmans and many Lightnings, and now I'm married into the many birds. So I married Louis Johnson, and we have wonderful children, grandchildren, and even a grandson. So that's a little bit about me as we're going to start today's talking and just discussing some of the things that I do. As the education director for our tribe, I've been here for now many years here, and I have a lot of initiatives. I have staff in and out as my initiatives come and go, but I have some real solid programs that I have developed into the inception it is right now. Right now we have JOM program, and that's operated out of the tribal offices here. I do that as pretty much as an in-kind oversight for them, and we have some wonderful staff out in the schools. They are Jaden Simon works in Westside. Mari Starr works in Westside, and I hear glowing reports all the time from the students and staff and the principal there, Dr. Moan. And they are really doing well out there. We have some other needs, though. We have Robin Brandt. She's our bus driver, and she works out of Browns Valley. She goes into the classrooms a little bit, but she primarily runs that activity bus. So our children that are in Browns Valley are able to attend after-school activities, cultural activities, and a little bit more things than that. And I always want to give a shout out to her because she survived the winter. She drives that big old Browns Valley JOM bus, and she survived all those winter roads. And so thank you for her and her time, and I know we have many parents that sure appreciate her services. And then we also have Aaliyah Anderson, and she works into our JOM, but she's actually split between two schools. She works with Waubay School, and she also works with Wilmot. And when we talk about JOM schools, we actually have 3 that are more than 50% Native American. That's Sisseton. Our System Public Schools, more than 50%, and so is Browns Valley Public School, and so is Waubay Public School. But we also run a JOM program out of Wilmot, so we're providing services. Most of the time, the education department is asked to provide workshops and things like that to deal with our culture, history, language, traditions. And so we do a lot of cultural workshops for our students, and really to bring that part of our history and who we are as Dakota people into the classrooms for our others. The other school that we work with that is not our JOM school but would love to be is Summit. And so Summit has every year their population of Native students grows a little bit more, and so it's nice to really have them on board with some of our initiatives. And well, we try to do a lot of programs that help to deal with who we are as a people, our past, present, and then work on really providing that correct information to students and staff and even parents. We've gone out and we often do little workshops with our after-school programs, and wherever we're invited, our staff goes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that because we'll get to Everett and Jacob here and what they've been up to here lately. But our JOM program is running. We include Aberdeen schools. And Aberdeen is really a pass-through for us, and so we monitor their quarterly reports, make sure they're doing what they say they're supposed to be doing, and then their funding flows through our tribe for them. And so we support a lot of the Aberdeen school, our native students in Aberdeen. So those are our JOM schools, and also a little bit more about Summit. And so as our one thing that since I've started this position here with the tribe, our native students in every school has grown. You know, from its inception, they all have grown. And when we look at population, you know, in providing that language training for them, or whatever we can do, and not to say we're in that part about language training, but we facilitate a lot of development and make sure that we get that active training in for our teachers who are out there teaching the language, who are out there teaching the culture. We try to work and network with the college on different workshops, with the BIE, Bureau of Indian Education, with different workshops, and however we can bring that in. And what I find that most of the time, our own people are our best experts. We have a phenomenal group of people that at any point in time can come into a classroom and give a wonderful workshop. And so, and definitely doesn't need me to run through all of that, but there's a lot of phenomenal community members out there, and knowledgeable people and knowledgeable experts out there that can do all that. So, and I just want to talk about a few that are on site with us and are employed through various programs. And so as an education director through the years, to increase the things that I wanted to do, that I want to provide emphasis on, you know, it all runs down to money. And so every time there's a little grant or anything that I can try to put an application in to develop out our programs, I do. And so I was able to gather a couple different pots of funding for our language, and we always call it Dakota Iapi Yukini, because we are bringing our language back and making it viable as a communication tool for all of us. And so I always have those goals. And so I've had long-term goals about really developing out curriculum and developing materials for our classroom, and also helping those teachers, because there is no curriculum that you can just go out there and buy and get those teaching materials that are just ready-made as we see when we're teaching reading and math. And so I always have a little, I try to keep a staff person employed that will do nothing but work on curriculum and develop that curriculum piece out. And so right now I have a couple of guys in there. I actually have 3 at this point in time. And so I've got 3 different funding sources that are holding my Yukini efforts, my Dakota language Yukini efforts together. And one of them is Solomon Quinn. And he has been the last couple of years working for us. He goes into the classrooms, and he has gone into primarily enemy swim, but also into into Teoshpazina somewhat. They really have a lot of Dakota staff, so there was not that biggest need there. But so Solomon goes in, he works maybe 5 hours a couple times a week, or 5 hours one week, or that. So it's not very much time, but what he does in the classroom is invaluable. The things that he works with and provides assistance to the students in their language development, but he also provides that first language learner, first language speaker, I should say. His enunciation, his voice, his communication of our second language teachers. And so we have many second language teachers in our school systems now. And so it's real awesome to be able to give them opportunities or provide those opportunities for them to speak with our first language speakers. And then we also have Everett Black Thunder. And so Everett comes with a huge skill set. And so I just like to I just love his energy that he portrays out there, and now he's got the puppets going, and now you're going to know about who's behind the puppets. And I have to say that we've been keeping him so busy here lately that he hasn't really had a lot of time to really put up those puppet shows. But over the winter, you saw a lot of little puppet shows, and especially when we were closed down, and we're able to get those up there and at least provide some little language workshops for you online and Facebook. So he generally puts things out there. And then our language, and he officially is our curriculum writer, but he also works with our groups, and I'll go in a little bit more with that. Our other person there is Jacob LeBlanc. And he comes with a breath of fresh air for us, young learner, and his category, his job is really learning. And so he's scheduled into the various events that have opportunities with the college or with Dakota Language Institute to really engross in hearing, speaking with our first language speakers. And so his is opportunity and a role of learning, and that also is funded through one of our grants. And so I love to have that. The last couple of days, they've been taking different groups of kids and really showing them how to spear, what it is, and the language involved with each one of them. So I see that. Also, I saw Travis up in Enemy Swim. I saw some pictures on him, and he had a group of students, and they were experiencing that and learning the language surrounding all that traditional food gathering. And it's all food gathering for us, and so exciting. When I look at that freshwater, cold water fish, it's like this is the best time to get them. So anxious for those lakes to unfreeze too, so we can actually fish. But when those two, so that's going to be done. But in between all of these different types of things, they've had groups come down from the Circle of Nations. They provide workshops here. They spend a lot of time during the day here just learning about our archives, going through what's all there, doing some cultural games, experiencing language, and some cultural activities that they have provided up here. And so it's real awesome that we're able to provide some of that. So we had Circle of Nations. The other groups that we have been having through is our fourth graders have been coming. And so really just coming through, but they have a different lens on theirs. They come in during tribal council. They have they get introduced to tribal council, and they get to watch how that whole role of providing a report, providing action items, approvals, the vote. They get to see all of that in live action. And then they go out and they also have some time to do some looking at what we have in the archives, in our museum artifacts, and spending some time with the Tribal Historic Preservation Office and learning about some additional things that they have archived back there and some artifacts that they have. But they also provide in some cultural workshops to them. And so we also had Wabe here, and so we have been really just providing whatever workshops that we can do for our children out there to provide that increased knowledge of our culture, our language, our history, and how we are as people. And so with that, Everett and Jacob do a lot of working with those groups of students, and so I'm so thankful that we have them on staff. And so as these grants run out, I'm really worried about how I'm going to continue off with these efforts. I do have request to the tribe to support some additional funding for me in this Dakota Yukini, in our Dakota IAPI Yukini program. So I am going after that, and we will, any other grants that I can come out there that I can vie for, I will, to keep our initiatives going. So yeah, anyway, Tom, that's a little bit about our Yukini and that, and I'm gonna roll over right now to talk a little bit about our broadband. And because we have a broadband grant, speaking of grants, and so it kind of just fell and rolled into our lap at one point in time. And planning had written the first leg of this and submitted it and got it passed, and then it came back to us for rewrite. And at that point in time, I didn't know much about it. But one day they were saying, what is it that you need for education? And so, and who I say, and it's really Will Fish out of planning. He says, what, and Jim Pearson out of the emergency management. He said, we have an opportunity for this project, this grant, he said, and what is it that you see that education needs? I said, we're in hot and heavy in the pandemic, and so this has been 2 years now we've had this project going. But I said, what we really need is sound, stable internet and access for our homes. And I said, the other thing we need to have is computers. Our people need to have access to computers. And so we worked on this grant with them, and eventually it became our grant. So it's our project now fully. And lo and behold, it was funded. And so out of that, we have had, we have hundreds of homes that have been provided 12 months of internet. And so we have had many more homes that have been provided with a computer, a laptop computer. And so we're on a go around. I'm at the end. I don't have any more computers in my office now, but I identified a little bit more funding, and I found enough to purchase 20 more computers, and I still have a stack of about this big of applications for people. And so I talked with the girls in the office, and Tara Hogg and Lisa Forcier worked hard, and they met with our funder again, and we have redefined some funding, and we're able to get permission to move some additional dollars into our computer initiative. And I'll talk about all of those a little bit. But so it looks like, when those budget mods and those things get done, I will probably be able to move some additional and open up our computer applications again. So I am excited about that. So a little bit about our broadband grant is really, one of the goals on it is really looking at providing our people with opportunities of that internet and those computers and things that they need, and especially for entrepreneurs. And so by entrepreneurs is those people that are working on their own, they're doing their own, if they have a retail position or job, or if they create and make their own wares and they sell. These are all things that can be used, you need that media and that technology to really have a successful business. And so you got to remember, this grant was funded during the pandemic, and so they had those ties to that, to those goals, is really helping people out there to make sure to make ends meet in whatever form of income that they work with. And so that was a huge one. And another goal that we had was our schools. And it's really to provide broadband to our schools and provide not so much broadband, but really computers and technology, because during the pandemic, we were at home and we were on computers, and that's all you could do for education was getting on those computers. And if you guys think about it, look at our winter. I had to think about how many actual full weeks of work that we actually had since December, and that wasn't very many. And and schools don't have that option of just canceling and going home. They actually have to make up those days, so they have to make their school years longer, or they have to provide a virtual platform for education. And so that means, again, access to computers, access to smartphones, and having that internet, a reliable internet. So the other thing that we found out through this venture was that parents that have more than like 2-3 kids, I mean, I know a family that had like 5-6 kids, they were all trying to get on devices, and it just bogged down the internet, and eventually you can't get the bandwidth, they call it bandwidth, that you need to do your schooling or get on with your teachers, or however you're going to do that. But so we found out we needed to provide a greater capacity or more Gs to our internet. So that was a learning experience. We've learned more about this type of stuff than we've ever really wanted to know about. So, and then there was the third goal of the broadband grant. And that really is to provide our elders, especially targeting our elders, to provide telehealth to our tribal members. But so if we have an opportunity to where you can access, for instance, if you're accessing psychiatry, psychologist type person, we don't have those readily available to us, and we don't get to access them. Even when you go to IHS and you sit in their little room and you access that level of a doctor and that experienced of a doctor, you're sitting in a little room in front of a TV. So it's really a telemedicine opportunity. And so as we come through this wake up of our world, that we have to have these opportunities, and whatever it takes to put on and get our needs met, and even if it's medical needs, we need to have the opportunity to have telemedicine in going. And with that, again, what do you need? You need a computer, you need a smartphone, you need internet, you need all of those digital things. And so, that was really what our broadband grant was about. We're getting to the end of it now, and so I'm sad that it's going to be done here, and so we'll have that one there. But okay, Tom, how much time do we have left?
Whatever you want.
Okay. I still have some time left, so I'll talk a little bit more. About a couple other of our initiatives. One of the other projects that we have that was a grant. It was another grant that I wrote. And when I say I wrote, I don't ever write anything totally. I have a whole team of people, and Tara sits at the table, Geraldine sits at the table, Geraldine Russo, and Tara Hogg, and Lisa Forcier, and they will sit there, and we'll each take a part of it, and we'll each take an initiative, and we will start fleshing out whatever our expertise is. And so when I say I write a grant, I really don't write all of them by myself, because I have a huge team, and I just keep when they come into my office and they start working with us, we just trade them into the next level of what they need to know. And so that's how we get our grants written, and that's how we are getting to be real successful at them. But one of them is called the Pejuta Maga Garden, the Maga Pejuta, and it was a pilot project. And the funding was a strange line item, but I'm not going to go through it. But it's we managed to tie enough of our goals of what we wanted to meet the funders' theme and what they were looking for. And what our garden really is I listened to the DARE program, and all during the pandemic, the DARE program talked about, and they actually worked with some of our traditional people to bring in medicinal, the medicines for us, all the medicinal herbs. And, I was excited about that because I love gardening. I love that gardening part, and I like to do, I like to plant things, I like to grow things. Of course, I love to eat. But this part of it, when we lived through that pandemic and when my family members were sick, and I reached out to that DARE program and I said, what kind of natural herbs do you have? What are those herbs to fight what we're battling, to lessen those symptoms? And so they had worked with our different, Linda was there, and just worked with different healers to figure out what it is. And so from there, I worked with, then also worked with Tammy Dakota, my sister, a little bit, because she worked for a while in DARE. And one summer that they actually bought the seeds and planted medicinal gardens, all to the things that they could get. And so I thought about all of that when this grant opportunity came open for us to write for it. I went ahead and I said, okay, this is what we need. And then I worked with the DARE program really to get their lists of this is what makes a difference to our Dakota people in lessening their symptoms and helping them get through the time of illness. And these are the best things. I think as a community, look at how much value the elderberry is, and how much, I don't know about anybody else, but I was taking elderberry vitamins and little capsules all through the pandemic because that was one of the things that they said would help. And prior to that, I didn't even know what elderberry was. And so that's kind of a crazy situation for me. But so my own knowledge about medicinal plants has really grown, and how we use them and what they're used for. And so that's real helpful, And I've always, I was raised by my father, and when we had a sore throat, he pulled out the bitter root, the Singpetu Tawa. Okay. He pulled that out all the time. And we grew up on those things, those little things that we know about. And then later on, when he was ailing and ailing, and so then I learned a little bit about kidney medicines. And he always took me back to a tree, and he would get some bark off there, the inner layer of a bark. And so, I knew a little bit more, and through the Sundance and the involvement there, and we know a little bit more there. And that's all we, as people, we pass that oral traditions of those medicines on. And so I took all of that, and then the list, and I wrote that into application. And really for us, it was, I would like to do 3 local gardens, and I would like to do help 3 different gardens out there, private gardens out there at their own homes. And that way we're looking at how well the plants grew, if they were successful in this area, so we're different types of soil, different types of exposure to wind, rain, in different areas. So we chose 3 different gardens, and we chose 3 different people to work with. And then I went ahead and ordered, but it was so late in the year that we really didn't get our plant seeds in until this year. So we have them now. And so most of the things that we planted, we went ahead and worked with in our gardens, but we really did a lot of vegetables in the 3 gardens here. And we we dug up some area behind the tribal building, and so we do have a garden there. It's a first-year garden, so of course it struggled, and we are going to till it up again and get it going, and now it'll have a second year and get some fertilizer for it. And then we also worked with our fitness center, because they always have a garden. And they have had a garden, a very successful garden every year for as long as I know about that. And every year I go down, when they say it's garden day and it's time to plant, I just get my little tennis shoes on and my hat on and get down there and start planting seeds with them. Because I know that when the plants grow, here comes the cucumbers, the squash, the tomatoes, and there are always all kinds of things like that come out of that garden. This year they had tons of pumpkins. And so we had a lot of that going on. And then the other garden that we struggled with, but we tried to work with it and did the best we could, was over to the elderly. And so wherever you plant a garden, you definitely have to water it. And so that was always a little bit of a struggle with that, because really, I don't hire any gardeners, and there's no gardeners in this project. It's really just a consultant to help you work through the gardening, and the rest of the time you have to take care of that. And so, yeah, so we got to find. So I just love summer youth workers. They held me together. I had some very wonderful ones to do that. But this year, so I'm so excited. Our seeds finally came in, and it took me almost a year and a half to get them, but I finally got them in. And so it's nice. We're very particular about the seeds, where they came from, and the fact that they be organic. So one of the things that we are working with is we're going to work with seed caching. And that means really just taking our seeds and saving them over the winter. So taking our harvests and making sure that we have enough for seeds for next year to go on. And through the project itself, through the Maga Pejuta project, is really we're going to do some videos and put some things out on Facebook, so we're going to use social media. And so I am gathering and getting a consultant on board to really help with that part of it, because that's just probably something I already see that's going to be a struggle for me to get it done. Time is always so tight with me. But I love it. It's something from my heart. It's from my passion, and the fact that it's medicinal plants, it makes it even more dear to my heart. So I'm very happy to have that one. And so, looking forward to Dustina and the college partnered up. Their extension program there partnered up, and they had a seed trading time. And I wasn't able to make that day, but I know that there was a second day, and then they canceled which is Earth Day, and then the activities at the college. And Earth Day was canceled, and so I'm really waiting for that next day, because I have seeds to share with our other gardeners out there. And so I'll be able to take the seeds that are here, and I'm only asking that they cache and that they seed save and continue on with these gardens. And I think as a community, learning how to grow these medicinal herbs and harvest them and take care of them and use them is going to be helpful. So hopefully we'll have be able to have some workshops in the future. And when I say Dustina, I'm talking about Nishto, her nonprofit organization. They do a lot of gardening. And she regularly puts it out there and invites anybody that wants to come. And now she's working in some initiatives with the city to have gardening within the city, and then also to support some children learning about the values of garden, healthy eating, and all of that. So Okay, Tom, time is flying.
We talk about the show every 2 weeks
Yep.
this time.
And so Tom is reminding me that yeah, I made a commitment. I made a commitment out there to talk to people and let them know. And so I'm going to try to put, every 2 weeks, I'm going to try to put somebody on in front of you, talks about education or talks about one of our initiatives or really does a presentation about what's going on. Some days might be longer than the others. The other times it might be a real short show. But we made that commitment to be a regular communicator out with what's going on in the tribal education department. We seem to have a lot of things, and then it doesn't, I get in front of the camera once and it's purging, it's just coming out of me, but it's nice to really talk about our programs and our things that we have going and our initiatives there, because we have a whole thing, you know, I'm a whole proponent on social studies standards, and I fought hard and long against that, and I'm still going on, so I would definitely welcome comments or any discussions on any of the social studies standards, and I guess I'll just kind of talk a little bit about that, social studies, before I get off today, since I already mentioned it once. The South Dakota, on a regular process every 5 to 7 years, does a review and a rewrite and an update of their standards. And standards are really just statements and documents that are statements of this is what our students are going to learn. This is what they will learn. And so every so often they do that. I think it's every 7 years, and they go about and they change those. Well, this year it has to do with social studies. And if you're anything in the world that you know about, it's social studies if you watch those news. The last, so 2 years ago, they actually put it out there, and you were able to sign up to be on some of the work groups to rewrite the social studies. And I'll even back you up farther than a couple years ago, because when we worked with a previous governor, she had told us that if you want to make sure that the Oceti Shakoi essential understandings are mandated, then you need to be part of the work group, and you need to be part of developing out the standards when that comes around. And so that's been in the back of my mind. And the Oceti Shakoi essential understandings are the only document that the state has sanctioned for Native people across South Dakota. That's the only thing there. And so, as my problem with that is that with being the only document, it's never been mandated. And so even if that's a little bit of a framework for teachers to help them in the classroom, it's never been mandated to be used. And so technically you can say it's there. Well, it's there, could be there on a shelf, could be there in the other bookshelf, and never used. But whereas standards are documents that have to be used, that is what you have to certify that your teachers are using. And all your lesson plans are standards first, and then you teach what you're going to use. So your lesson plans are usually a local decision by your school board and your administration of what kind of lesson plans you have, what your documents. And also a local decision is your materials you use for, like, your textbooks, any videos or anything. That is usually a local decision also. And so all of that goes. Well, going back to those standards. So those standards are mandated and supported at the state level. And so 2 years ago, they decided that it was the social studies time. And so I did what what I said I was going to do and put my name in. Lisa Forcier put her name in, and we both got on the social studies group. And so we spent many evenings at home working on, and training on what they were getting us ready to be, all the trainings that they had, what they were looking at, and many meetings at home to get that done. And then over the summer, we spent a couple weeks of living in Pier and writing standards. And so really we take the old standards and you look at them, what is missing, what's not there, what do you see, what needs to be changed. And so we had all these educators in this huge room, and we wrote those standards. And nothing could go through to the next level until everybody agreed. So it was 100% consensus. And I like that, so we all agree upon of it. And if it wasn't 100% consensus, we worked at it. And so we worked hard to get it to that. So that went up to the state, and before it even came back to us, it was changed. So that was changed. And then next thing I know, we have a whole set of documents that William Morrissey out of Michigan wrote, and it doesn't look like our standards, doesn't feel like our standards, and there was so much pushback on it. So it goes through the 3 hearings, or actually 4 hearings, and so it went through all of its hearings. And it went up to Aberdeen, and I testified there against it because it's so inappropriate for our children, all children. It's inappropriate for all children. So all 7 tribes all of our tribes throughout the state of South Dakota wrote a resolution that stated, out of the 9, stated they were against that. And then our Great Plains Tribal Chairmen's Association, got together, and they also wrote a resolution just to say they're against and opposed to these. And so we've had several since South Dakota started this bit. CC2 has had several resolutions on this, but the second one is the one of our that we've had lately. And it's, I don't know. These are so unhealthy. There's, the only mention in kindergarten, and that's America. Anyway, we ceased to exist prior to 1492 because the world and our standards start at 1492. There's nothing before that. So that's a problem in itself. And then when you look at what your kindergartners are learning, it's a whole bunch of people. But there's only like 8 mentions of people in there. But then you get to first grade, and there's only 1 mention of Native American throughout the whole thing. And so there's so many irregularities there. There's hundreds of spans of time when Native people cease to exist. And then the standards themselves, they were well over 1,000 comments, and so many people opposed to this, that pretty soon it felt like the state was bringing in people from out of state to testify in support because they couldn't find anybody to support them. And so regardless, we went down to Pier. I testified one more time, and there it was. And I said, I point blank at one point in my testimony accused the hearing group that I said, you guys have already decided this. You guys have already made your mind up. We can already see it coming. Look at what's happening this summer. Those decisions to push forward are already there, haven't you? And all I did was I asked them, I said, can you come to this with an open mind and fair? What are your teachers saying? What are your students saying? Because we had many students testifying too on behalf of themselves. And I said, what are your directors saying? What are the Native people saying? And yet, in spite of all of that opposition, they went ahead and still approved it. And so there's some problems there. And I want to say that I'm not done with that. I need to talk to some attorneys and figure out what is our next step. So, okay, Tom, I'll just leave it right there with you for today. We'll come back again another Thursday
From 10 to noon.
from 10 to whatever. Yeah.
Or 10 to 12.
So.